in the series on managing attachment and personal relationships. With that said, I want to begin right off with our homework. Now, who did some homework here? Huh? I see some homework back there. All right. And what was the homework last time? You were to do 2 sets of reflections, weren't you? All right. So, Sandra, I nominate you to start us off, huh? Put some pressure on you, huh? Just tell me what you understood of what you got out of that homework.
I just kind of reflected on how things change.
How things change. Because one of the reflections was on impermanence. Right.
Right, and I just reflected on the things that I noticed that change in my day-to-day activities.
In your day-to-day.
And it made, then we were to talk about how it made me feel. And this, I did this about 3 or 4 days ago, so it's not real fresh on my mind.
That's okay.
But I felt that it makes me hard to trust people because things change and people change so much.
So you had a feeling of inability to depend on others.
Right.
Because of the flux of life. What else? What other conclusion did you come to about yourself? Remember, there were 3 things I wanted you to do. I wanted you to tell me how it made you feel, and I wanted you to reach some conclusion that you came to about yourself, about others, and about the world as a whole.
Well, when I think about it, it makes me feel insecure. But when I don't think about the impermanence of things and just go through the motions of life, it's almost like, everything's going to work out,
All right, now that's very interesting, because one of the things that you're going to find out is that security is a myth.
Right.
There is no such thing as security. Now, this is a very, very critical threshold to cross, because almost all of our life, the fuel that drives our attachment is our quest for security. We want to make life predictable. We want to bring life within the boundary of our own control. And life cannot be controlled. And life is unpredictable. Hence, our existence is within a context of insecurity. But this is not a kind of insecurity that breeds a kind of pathology. Life just is insecure. So we talk now about the wisdom of insecurity. How to be secure in the midst of insecurity. These are the kinds of things that should be coming up out of that kind of homework that you did. Because this is the test, isn't it? I mean, think about it. What are you trying to do? You're trying to have some experience of security. And with security, in order to have that, you have to have a sense of certainty, right? Now, nothing is certain. Nothing. So how to live with the uncertainties and the insecurities of life? And that becomes one of the spiritual tests that we all are confronted with. And this is also true within the context of our relationships. So that was a very, very good insight, Sandra, for you to get, to really begin to see that nothing is secure. You don't know what's going to happen. And yet to be able to live in that. And what conclusion did you come to about yourself? We're going to come back to this feeling of insecurity. The conclusion you reach about yourself. If this world, in fact, is insecure, if you witness the flux of life, and you found that this thing called life is unpredictable, it is insecure, I cannot be certain.
Well, I guess the same insecurity, the same feeling that I can't trust myself because I change.
Okay, I say trust yourself. I would say you can't take yourself too seriously.
Too seriously?
Right. You have to lose some of that seriousness. Because how can you take it? Because you've changed. Did you notice your changes?
Right.
What were some of the changes you noticed in you as you pondered this thing?
I get older day by day.
Everybody get older?
You know,
Right.
health comes and goes.
Your state of feeling good in
Right.
the body, feeling healthy in the body,
Right.
waxes and wanes, it comes and goes, yes.
Relationships that I'm in change.
Tell me about that.
Well, you know, relationships develop. They get stronger. You
Mhm.
get closer to people,
Mhm.
or you move away from people.
And that's just how it is?
Yeah.
Astamos sanitano, as the
Mhm.
Buddha said, that's how it is. The relationships themselves are occurring within the context of this process. The world.
I feel sad about the world changing, right? Because it seems that the changes that I reflect upon in terms of the world changing are changes for the worse instead of changes for the better. So it makes me feel very sad that about the world.
Makes you sad about
because
the
it
world.
looks like things are getting so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Situations and circumstances and conditions of the world are getting so bad.
I see. All right, very good. Now, those, remember, these are your own private conclusions that you've reached. So there is no right, there is no wrong, but I want you to get in touch with those things. Who else did some homework? Avia?
I did.
Okay.
I focused on relationships as well, but the one I specifically focused on was the relationship I have with my parents and how that's changed.
All right, tell us about it.
Well, as a child, maybe it was considered a useless relationship, but as a child, I depended on them totally for love, affection, security, shelter, all those things. But now, I notice the transition is shifting, and I'm becoming more of a contributor in the relationship because now my parents are looking for me for something, and I'm able to give to them companionship, guidance in their medical choices and financial choices and those type of things. So it's almost like I can see the relationship slowly evolving until that I'm going to be the main contributor in the relationship. Not totally at this point, but
Almost
it's getting
a
that
role
way.
reversal.
It's a role, yeah, that's what it is, a role reversal.
You're witnessing that.
Yes, I am. And,
How did that make you feel?
it makes me feel good. It really does.
Makes you feel good?
Yeah, I feel real good about that. That for all the years they were able to give me joy and happiness and those things, that I'm able to share something back. And I've noticed the same thing with my friends as well. Their roles are reversing with their parents. As far as the world, it saddens me only because I think that a lot of the elderly people have put so much in trying to build the nation. I can't speak about the world, but the nation, U.S. nation, and I think the nation looks at elderly now as a burden, and they don't provide much for them as far as medical and Social Security and stuff. So I guess it's turned out to be a useless relationship because now the nation is looking at these people who helped build the nation as
burdens.
As burdens. And that saddens.
And that saddens. What did you see with respect to yourself? Note that these are conclusions that she's reaching.
With respect to myself, as far as the transition,
As far as the flowing of time, the impermanence, change.
well, I consider myself to be more mature. I'm just more of a contributor. Just more of a contributor because before, as I witnessed myself, I was not a contributor in the relationship that I have.
What has changed in you you looked over a span of time? What has changed?
Well, I've become independent. I've become independent. Not totally independent.
Now, which is it now?
No, not totally independent. Because I still need it for emotional support. Such, but I have changed. I didn't reflect much on myself.
You didn't look at the
I
self
didn't really
yet.
look at myself.
Right, look at the self too. Anybody else do some homework? Yes, sister.
I did, but I hope you don't have to turn me because I didn't print it out.
That's all right.
Okay. I did a reflection in terms of myself. I've begun to realize that whenever there's a problem or situation, I don't want to call it a problem, situation in my life that seems difficult for me to handle, I've always looked at it in an incomplete manner in terms of the other party that's contributing to the difficulty in the situation, and always looking at what that person has done to me, rather than how I have, as the young lady speaking of, contributed in terms of myself. So now when I'm looking at it and I place myself like in the center of everything, I always look at how I have contributed, because even though someone may come to me and they make a situation seem difficult, I have to, the solution has to, begin with me and how I react to that person, whatever energy they're bringing to me, how I react to that person could result in that situation getting worse, or that situation getting better, or just dissolving. It's not even anything that is difficult anymore. As in terms of like the change for myself, and well, I should say now in relation to other people, it's just that it's what can I give to make it better, rather than sitting back waiting for somebody else to make it better for me. So then when I look in the world, I can't say that I feel sad. Actually, I feel very good, because I am one corner of the universe that is going to make a change, because I'm slowly becoming more aware of myself and all of the things that I can offer the world through that awakening. So in terms of that, the change is not so scary, simply because if I allow this growth to continue, then there isn't the change is going to be, even though the world may seem to be changed, it will actually be stable. It's just that it will become like a chameleon, almost. The colors and everything might change, but in actuality, I won't.
Okay, good. You're moving in a good direction. Because what the purpose of the homework was, I want you to look at what are your attitudes toward change. What are your attitudes? Are you afraid of change? Really? Yes?
I didn't do a whole paper or anything, but I did come to one conclusion about the impermanence of life. And my feeling is that I've learned not to take the illusions of life so seriously, because they are illusions and they are fleeting. And if I get strung out on every wave, every negative thing or even positive thing that comes my way, I feel like I'm a puppet just being bounced around by illusions. And, that was my overall feeling after I had, contemplated the whole idea.
The ideal is that when you do the contemplation deep, and you should continue with it, because one shot at it is not going to be enough. But what starts happening is start detaching you. It starts detaching you. When you penetrate into the depths of it, you start releasing your grip. That clinging will start to dissipate some. But we all have brought with us into our adulthood certain preconceived notions. And we bring these into relationship because we're confining our discussion of attachment to relationships, you see. So I want to know how this impermanence has played out itself in your relationships. And how do you think it will continue to impact on the relationships? Particularly because, for instance, we talk about love. And love is the motive that moves you into your relationships. Is that correct? Oh, that's what we thought it was, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right? We found out last time that sometimes that's not always what happened. Right? But now love itself, is it impermanent? In your relationships?
I don't think so.
Okay, we have to have some discussion on this here.
I think it is permanent.
You think, now I'm talking about looking in your relationship. I don't want to be abstract. Look at your actual relationships that you are in. and see if the love you should have in those relationships have remained constant through time.
That's
Love is constant.
Talk about looking in our relationships,
Right.
not philosophizing.
Right.
Actually look in your relationship and see if you have ever had an experience of continuous love in your relationship.
I think we wanted things. We said we wanted love, but what we really wanted was things.
Things.
Right.
And what that person represents.
Now that's
Yeah.
very interesting. Now Sandra's taking it to a different level. She said that we have confused love with things. And we have moved into these relationships in pursuit of things. Is that right? Because we got to talk about relationship. We got to talk about relationship because whatever you're going to get in life is going to come through another human being. So we got to talk about that.
In my paper, I wrote about acceptance.
Tell us about acceptance then. Go ahead. In your homework, you looked at acceptance.
I looked at acceptance. When I was a child, I wanted to be accepted by my parents, by my brothers. Later, I wanted girls to accept me because I didn't have a sister. And I did things in order to get the acceptance. But I found in order for them, they might accept me temporarily. But if I grew out of what they wanted in me, they rejected me. So then I looked into a relationship. I said, well, I'll just get me a man and create my own world, and I'll be accepted. I'll have my husband. He'll love me. He'll get me these things I want, and I'll have a baby by him. And therefore, my baby will love me, so I'll have my acceptance. Well, I got married. My husband turned into a nightmare.
Okay.
The child grew up to be complex and looks at the world like he hates the world. I'm included in it. I still don't have my acceptance. The husband, we can't really talk, so I couldn't get it there, and I created my own paradise, I thought. But it didn't turn out like that. So I said, well, maybe I made a mistake. I chose the wrong man. Although this child came from me, I did something wrong. So then, I ran around getting into other relationships, and I found out, well, no, that don't work. So it's really not love. It's what we think is love and what we crave. So after getting into that, I said, well, let me step out of this. So I said, I need something for my mind. Went back to school. Okay, well, school, that was fine. I took a break. I decided I have to be alone to look at me. And in order to find some acceptance, I had to find it in myself because I couldn't get it from anybody else. And I'm at that point now. Now I'm not looking for things. I still crave things, but I want some answers. That's what I wrote my paper on.
That's very good. That is very good. I just want to get everything out there, then we're going to process everything collectively. Shanae, you have a comment?
We spent, my sister, my niece, and I spent the morning talking till 3:30 this morning, talking about being open to allowing people to change and how hard that is to do.
I like that.
And it's just so difficult to do. And I think that's what happens in a love with relationships is that it is like like you said, the flowing stream. I feel like the first 38 years of my life was a flowing stream, but it was a nice, calm flowing stream, and I liked all the changes. I was always a flexible person. I married a military guy. We moved every 2 years. I love meeting new people and living in different places in the world and eating different food. And as long as my changes were wonderful and nice, I was happy. Then the last 4 years, we moved into the rapids. And the water picked up speed. And that's what I wrote about. In the last 4 years, I got divorced. My parents both died. I had to move back home, moved away from a surrounding and friends that I'd had for the last 20 years. And these weren't as nice of changes that I had had the first 38 years.
Right.
So all of a sudden they were not, and then the worst, not the worst, it really wasn't the worst, but probably the most, the change that made the most effect on me was last January 1994, on the 17th, at 4:31 in the morning. I was thrown from my bed at a 6.3 earthquake, and my house changed. Those things that Sandy's talking about,
things changed.
because those things that I got out of that relationship and was able to pack up and take away with me were so important to me.
Yes.
And what we define ourselves with are so often so material. When it was all crashed around me, I didn't care about it, didn't think about it. I remember thinking 4 days later did I think about the broken glass in my kitchen, because people were just, you were so glad that you were able to stand up and that you were alive. And it was okay, and that the rest of the world didn't come to an end, but you thought it happened for 40 seconds. That gave me, it did some changing of it. It didn't make me a happy person all of a sudden, though. What it did is, and my motto last year became, I'm still here. And basically some days that's all you can say is, I'm still here. I'm waiting to get back to, you know, this joyful old me. I was a naive, wonderful, happy person for so long. I remember that and miss that in me. But now I question things, and maybe I needed to be there. And no matter how far, I mean, I was continuing to resist all the lessons that I think God kept putting in front of me. And so he kept sending trains because I wouldn't listen to anything else. And I think we don't allow people to change, and we don't want, we want it to be prayer, to be the answer that we gave, we say, you know, I'm forever saying, let go, let God, but God, could it be, you know, what I want it to be? And that's not it. So we let people, we let people change. We allow it to happen. I just think that's when we get more from it.
Now, I think Shanae has done actually part of the whole issue. Attachment does what in a relationship? It destroys your capacity to allow the other party the freedom to change. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? When we are attached in a relationship, we are depriving that individual of their own volition, movement along their own course of unfoldment. And why do we do that? Because, as Shanae has said, we cannot accept change. Change is frightening, because change makes you feel insecure, don't it? You're moving into the unknown, and so you cling and you control. So attachment always have those two aspects, clinging and controlling. And this is bound to destroy any relationship. Bound to destroy any relationship. So the question becomes, how do we drop this clinging and controlling in our relationships? Because if there's going to be any possibility for the relationships to really be mutually respecting and mutually nurturing, then we have to drop this clinging and controlling, don't we? Which means we have to become detached. Larissa, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious. You know, in the African American community, how did change become such a dirty word? You know, how is it that if a person changes, is something wrong? Because I know, in terms of, you know, being in school with your friend, oh, she's changed. You know, she's just this way, and it just seems like it's just such a dirty word. But yet, when you go outside, you know, and you hear your mom say, in a philosophical manner, well, everything must change, and you know, so forth. But when that change does come, it's so hard to accept, because it's just been one of those things that you do, but you really shouldn't do, because it is not good for all parties concerned.
Well, I don't think it's just a problem that is related to one's ethnicity. We're talking about a human phenomenon here, you see. Yes, ma'am.
I think I can relate to what she's saying, in the sense that I don't think that we like to admit that our people are as conservative as they are.
Yes.
Because the rest of the world tries to portray us as this very loose, sort of not grounded group of people. But I think when you have been a group of people that's had to like build that sense of rubbing and grabbing for every little step forward, when you come home and say, well, you know, I just want to be free, you know, it's like when I was a kid and told my parents I wanted to go to Peace Corps, they were like, we haven't worked ourselves to death for you to go to Peace Corps, you know. And that might surprise people, but you have to have arrived at a certain point to allow your children to change. Yes, you can tell them everything must change, but you know, just remember, you know, you're a Jones or a Smith, and we go to this church, and that's right, and I'm your mama, and blah blah blah. And I think that is something that's really inherent in our group, and it makes us kind of psychotic because we're saying to the larger society, we want you to change your attitude about us. But a lot of times we haven't dealt with the thing about changing what's in our heart about ourselves.
All right. So so then, in our own situation as a group of people, it could be that we have overcompensated.
Yeah.
We went to the other extreme, out of a deep sense of poverty, trying to hold on to what few scraps, pieces we got. And so we tend to cling to a lot of that stuff when it's no longer appropriate. We try to cling, even when it's no longer intelligent to cling. We try to cling to certain old ways, right? Because the ways that worked then may not necessarily work now. We talked about the fact that one of the problems that we all are confronted with is that we carry forward strategies that were appropriate 20 years ago. But reality is different 20 years later. I mean, those strategies got to be replaced with strategies that are contemporary to reality. And perhaps as black folks, we cling to a lot of stuff that is really gone. One of the things that we cling to that is really antiquated is our whole spiritual concept of what constitutes spirituality. You see, we'll talk about that a little later, because that's a long discussion in itself. You see, we cling to a lot of old spookism. You see, that is really of no value. The thing we're looking to is that in these relationships, we are clinging and controlling of the individual that we are in the relationship with. And whenever you control another person, you deprive them of their freedom. And remember, whoever deprives you of your freedom, you will hate automatically. And not only are we clinging and trying to control the other person, we are also clinging to our own egos too, aren't we? How many of us can feel in ourselves this clinging to being something that we thought we were 20 years ago? Do you feel that? Shanae, you were going in that direction. Did you feel that clinging when that earthquake hit, that you had to let go of a lot of stuff? Because all of the material things were gone. Normally, when we talk about the object of attachments as they relate to materiality, then what you very find is that our image of ourselves, our identity consists of our possession. I am what I possess, what I own. And that begins to make up our identity. So when that earthquake knocked down all the dishes and tore, suddenly you were in crisis, because you can't replace that. And there must have been an impact on your identity. It started melting, right? So these are the two things to manage, right, inside of a relationship. Now, why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because all of the misery that we're going to experience is usually coming from these relationships. I talk to a lot of people, you see, and they say, Bhagwan this and Bhagwan that, I'm unhappy because, but technically I can reduce it to the fact that in the relationships, you see, there's nothing happening. And you remember, you got to be in a relationship. You don't have an option. It's not like you can live on this planet alone. Many people have tried that route. It does not work. So you can't isolate yourself. You cannot live in a vacuum. It is interesting. Most people, if they're thrown into solitude, will lose their mind. It's interesting. They can't handle it. You're sitting in the house, nobody around you. Notice how nervous you feel, how uneasy. Maybe you enjoy it for the first few days, but after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, you start feeling this craving for human contact. It's a food, if you will, and you have to have it. So now let us look and see, how do we really manage our attachments in these relationships? What are the things we can do? How are we normally managing our attachments? I know these questions sound a little odd to you, but you'll get used to them. How do you manage your attachment? In what ways are you attached in the relationships? Are you attached in your relationships? Are you aware of your attachment in your relationships?
I think we get it.
Who are you trying to control? Let me put this very blunt. Who are the people that you are trying to control? Who are the people we usually try to control? Give me one. Who?
Children.
Our children, right?
Mates.
Our spouses, right? Who else? Friends?
Employees.
Friends? Parents? Someone said employees. Notice that this group here is a core group, isn't it? Right? Now we're moving toward the peripheral, aren't we? Employees. Who else? Just other people, casual people, or just other people in general, right? Anybody we come in contact with, right? And we go and so forth. But let's focus in on this core group. Children, spouses, friends, and parents. Are these the people we're trying to control, folks, in our relationship? Now let's be real here about this here. Is this what we're trying to do? Are these the people we're trying to that we're clinging to try to keep from changing? And it's having a lot of misery because of that? How many of us try to keep our children from changing? Think about it. Do we all do that? And is that possible? Remember I said the attempt to stop change is to attempt the impossible. You are going to fail. And you're going to fail miserably. What about our spouses? Do we try to control our husband and wives? In the relationship that you are in or were in, are you really practicing the subtle art of trying to control them? As Sandra said, control them to get things. You're not even controlling them to get the experience of love, are you? You're controlling them to get things. If Sandra is correct here, I think she's got a high batting average there. Friends, parents. I want you to see what it is that you're doing in a relationship. Because remember, don't talk to me about, well, you're going to go out and you're going to intersect with the world and you're going to get along with your neighbors and all that. This is nonsense. If you cannot love the people you with, you don't have a shot at loving your neighbor. Let's drop this nonsense. Let's drop this nonsense. You see, because we all talk about what we want to be contributing citizens. We want to be good neighbors and good this and good that. But are you first a good spouse? Are you a good child? Are you a loving mother, a loving father? I can't love my children. How am I love your children? Now come on. Let's drop this nonsense. Let's drop this nonsense. Let's start where we have to start. That is the whole beauty of having these contexts, these families. It is a training ground. Marriage has been an institution that prepares us for the larger context of the world. Yes, sister?
No, I think in the context of just the fact that we are trying to exist in Western society, which is a controlling society just to the nature of just our environment. Everything about it says, well, you know, things can't grow freely, things can't be free, that in order to be a respected person in that society, people not only want to see you in a controlled situation, they want your lawn controlled, your dogs, your children. Yes. And I always find it amusing in the spring, sort of when people go out and you see, not so much in our group, but in the larger culture here, the people sort of demonstrating to everyone else, having their dogs healed, and you know, and it gives them this feeling that I've got control over something. You know, the kids may be going off, but I've got.
I guess I control my dog.
My dog is, yeah. And many times the dogs are more well behaved, quote unquote, than the children, because they have given up on. I don't know what to do with your nature over here, but I can make this thing submit to me.
Yes.
You know.
It's almost like a displacing cycle.
Yeah.
It's a displacing syndrome. When we talked about anger before, we talked about the fact that A person, person A goes to work, gets the boss pisses him off, right? He can't do anything because the boss controls his income, so he suppresses the anger, right? Comes home, meets his wife, the next person. What does he do with that suppressed anger? Unloads it onto a big time punch, right? He gets a little relief on it, temporary, right? But now the wife is in turmoil, isn't she? Right? And so she's enraged, right? But she can't express the anger back at the man because she's attached. She needs some things. Attachment means you're not free to function in a relationship because you need your stuff. You trying to hold on to your stuff. You trying to hold on to your house in that relationship. You trying to hold on to that joint bank account in that relationship. You trying to hold on to that furniture, them cars. You understand? And you have to be, careful with what you say and do in that relationship. So let's say she's a typical wife, right? So she got to swallow all that abuse, right? And all that anger just suppressed in her. Then she goes on her way upstairs, right? Full of this anger. She passed old Junior sitting on the steps, right? And she takes her fist and she knocks Junior all the way down the stairs. I told you 10 years ago, boy, to clean that room. I mean, it was 10 years ago, right? Any excuse. Now Junior is inflamed, isn't he? Right? Now, if Junior got some sisters and brothers, there's going to be some fight in that bedroom tonight. They're going to be tearing up in that room. If he don't have sisters and brothers, he's got a dog, he's going to beat that dog. He's going to beat the hell out that dog. And if there's no dog, sister, or brother, Junior going to go to school the next morning, take his gun, and he's going to displace this anger there. So you see this cycle. It's like that also, Khadija, with respect to this attachment, this controlling thing. Now, you can't control nobody in your house. Perhaps. And then you displace that, don't you? This urge to control. This urge to protect yourself from living in the insecurity of life. And that's all that creates the urge in the first place for control, is the inability to live with the insecurity of life. But life is insecure. And without having the spiritual growth to deal with the insecurity of life, you have no other option but to resort to controlling, clinging, attachment-oriented styles of interrelating with people and with life in general. And that will produce misery. Because now this creates war inside of this thing. Because are these people just going to stand there and say, well, you can go ahead and control? No, they're going to rebel on it. Right? You're going to have a lot of rebellion, a lot of war. It's going to go on. See? So we're looking at these contexts. And as I said earlier, these are core contexts, because this is where you learn how to be a human being. Maharaji, my own spiritual teacher, used to always tell us, said that don't worry so much about becoming a great yogi and a great mystic and a great avyasi, spiritual practitioner and all these other things. He says, first try to become a good human being. That is the first step on any spiritual path. Try to become a good husband, a good wife, a good father, a good mother, and all these other things. That is the foundation. But how would you do that? I'm asking a real fundamental question, because we're talking about creating character. We have children. How are you going to create character in them sons of yours? What will you do? How would you create character? You want them to have character, don't you? How are you going to do that, parent? What specific strategy do you have in mind to set up a curriculum that will produce character in your children? How are you going to do that? Yes, sister?
I think self-control. Because it's the challenge of...
Oh, you hot today.
You
hot today, sister.
But we were talking.
Yeah, we were on to 3:30.
Yeah, that's paying off.
But I was reading something about the whole thing of if we could see how difficult it is just to control ourselves, we can have some empathy or sympathy for this urge to do it to other people.
I like what you say so much. I want to just run over there and just kiss you, because this is key. Normally, this is, when you can't control yourself, it creates in you the urge to do what? To control others. There's a direct relationship between the two. Wherever you find the individual with no ability to control themselves, to master themselves, automatically you will find in them a strong urge and need to control others. Isn't that interesting? It's very interesting, isn't it? It's a displacement syndrome going on, isn't it, Khadija? Right? Self-control, self-mastery. Right? Let's look at that for a moment or two, because it's really important. What does it mean to control yourself? What does that mean? What is self-mastery? What is self-control? We use this word all the time. What is that?
It's the ability to stop yourself from being angry. When you feel yourself getting angry, to be able to nip it in the bud, so to speak.
Go ahead. Good, that's one. It's the ability to control and manage anger. It's the ability to control and manage attachment, isn't it, people? Right? The ability to control and manage lust. Whoa. That's what self-mastery is. Right? That's what self-mastery is.
So it's everything that is what you consider on a relative level, anything that changes from time to time, being able to control yourself in that.
To control your reaction to it. You see, here's the thing. What you cannot do ever is control phenomena. But you can control noumena. You can't control that which is going on around you. But you can control how you react to it. That's the key. That's the key. Now, you're married to a woman. Now, the woman is no good. All right? Now, ain't nothing you can do. You can't edit. You can't change. You married to a no good man. The man is no good. Now, that's just a fact. Now, you can't edit that man. You can, through self-mastery, be in control of how you react to it. Meaning that you can detach yourself. If you're in a relationship of detachment, you can't get away from the man, even if once you don't realize this now. Why? Because through this man, you got your hand on your stuff, as Sandra calls it. Sandra, this stuff is something, isn't it? This stuff is the cause of a lot of misery, isn't it? Right? They once asked the monkey catcher, how is it that you can catch a monkey? Because these monkeys are so agile. They're so fast. I mean, think about it. How do you catch a monkey? And particularly in ancient times when we didn't have darts to sedate them and all these other things, right? And the monkey catcher said, well, first you have to understand the nature of a monkey. The nature of a monkey is greed. All right? Monkeys symbolizes greed. And their greed is directly related to their palate, like most of us. There's a lot of monkey in us, right? Some of us still got our tails tucked away. But in any case, the monkey catcher said that knowing that, he says, and you find something that the monkey loves to eat. And so they found out one of the things the monkey likes is sweet potatoes. So what they do, they dig a hole in the ground, right? Put a sweet potato in there. Now they construct this hole in such a way that it's just big enough for the monkey to get his hand in there, grab that sweet potato, and make that fist around. But it's not big enough for him to pull his whole arm out. And that monkey climbs down out that tree, because he's so curious, isn't he? Right? He climbs down out of his freedom, crosses the ground, sticks his hand in that hole, getting that sweet potato, driven by that greed, grabs it, right? And now the catcher just can walk up to him. Now he's screaming, but he can't go nowhere. He's crying and screaming, say, oh Lord, oh please help me, oh please help me, God, please get me out of this situation. But he is holding himself in that situation because the greed will not allow the monkey to release the sweet potato and be free. You see, that's how you catch a monkey. And that is how Carl catches us. That's how the world catches us. We all have these sweet potatoes in the form of our stuff, right? and you got your hand in it, and you can't let it go. That's attachment. That's clinging, right? You're going to get caught. You're going to get messed up, you see, because having all that stuff is not the same, as Sandra pointed out, of being in love. Is it? Is having stuff equal to being in love? Is that right? I mean, don't be too quick to answer that question. Is that correct? Larita?
That was a rhetorical question.
Okay. All right.
Sit like that, then.
That's right. So this is self-control. This is self-mastery. And this is the whole aim and objective of all spiritual science, is to provide us with the methodology, the techniques, the understanding to help us achieve a degree of self-mastery. This is what moksha, liberation as the Hindus call it, moksha, salvation, all of these terms, means what? The freedom that it comes into your life when you have become master of your own self. You need not master the world. Who are you to change the world? How are you going to change the world? Now come on. That is the ultimate ego trip. My God, you can't even change yourself, but you're going to change the world. This is madness. Madness. And remember, there's been billions of reformers in the world. Have the world changed? Has it changed? So many Muhammads, Buddhas. Buddha couldn't change it. Jesus could not change it. Muhammad could not change it. How are you going to change it? You can't change the world. The problem is not the world. The problem is you. The problem is how are we responding to the world. And that, as Khadija said, lies within our own abilities. So the management of all of these things are efforts in our own behalf, aren't they? We move towards self-mastery as an act in our own behalf to root us in some stability, right? So we want to begin to look at those relationships. I asked the question earlier that we all, yes, Emma?
I wanted to say one thing. I just think you need to go a little deeper when you talk about self-control and self-mastery.
You want to go deeper,
and,
all right.
and say what it is, because what it is, I think, is awareness. Because unless you're really aware of something, you can't change. You can't change. You got to be aware of the fact that you're controlling your children or you're controlling your spouse. Be aware that you are attached to this stuff and you like this stuff, because only then can you change. Because when you're attached to stuff, you're attached to stuff. You're stuck. But you need that awareness to come in and really see it for what it is, and then you need courage. You like your stuff. You don't want to give it up. That's right.
They like that stuff.
I love my
You know
stuff,
you're attached.
and you don't want to give it up. So you need courage to look at it for what it is, and courage to break away, to change,
Right.
to transform.
Let's look into that a little bit, because that's very true. Okay. And Senator, you had a remark. I'll let you go ahead and get that in so that we can address them all.
I said, what if you're aware that you are controlling? You know this is what you need.
You need courage.
But you have courage. I don't think you need courage. I think you need to go through some changes. You need some pain. I mean, it doesn't take
If
courage.
you're not smart, you need some pain. But when you had a high threshold of pain,
The
no
whole,
more pain, no
all
more.
of society to
That
me.
don't work, Sinead? Sinead said
What
that don't
you
work.
need
Huh?
is what we're doing here. You need teachers.
Right,
Because you've been taught to like the stuff.
Mhm.
right.
When I called my parents to tell them I was getting divorced, the first thing out of my mother's mouth was the inventory. She started down the list. Who's getting? And I hadn't gotten there yet. But it becomes, because you go to the lawyer, it does become. That's what it gets. That's what it reduces to. So you need help if you can't get out of it.
I have a question. I just want to know that as you're going through this self-mastery, do you have to give up the stuff?
No, not physically, but you have to give it up in your needs. You have to give it up emotionally.
Detached.
You have to become detached. Now, Emma said a very good thing, because the only way that you can deal with attachment is through attachment. Now, this is strange. It's a very strange thing. The only way that you can be detached is through a process of higher attachment. Now, I used to use the example of a pauper. He says, you give a pauper a penny, and that's all the money in the world to that pauper. Now you try to get it from that pauper, and you got a fight on your hands. Because it's all the pauper has. And the pauper will cling, they will fight to the death to hang on to that. That's how you are with your stuff. That's all you got is this stuff. Naturally, you're going to fight like hell through the court. Kill that bastard. You know what I mean? I want the house. I don't care whether he can live or not. And, you know, I want my stuff because that's all you got is your stuff. And you will cling, so you're like a pauper. Maharaji says the way that you deal with that is that you give the pauper $1 and he automatically drops to you. The experience of attachment can only be replaced with a higher experience that you get attached to. And that brings us, Emma, to what you were saying, awareness. Because you're right. All of you all are right, actually. So you're not really saying anything that is necessarily contradictory. It's like blind people. If blind people, out of their blindness, are going to describe an elephant, well, some blind people is touching the tail and say, oh, this elephant is a long, slender thing. And the other blind person is touching the elephant's body. So, oh, no, he's big like a wall. Some touch the trunk, some touch the feet. And out of their blindness, they get different overall vision. But when you open your eyes and see the elephant, then you're all in one accord. So we're like those blind people groping in the dark, and some of us is feeling the tail, some of us is feeling, and we think we're describing a different thing. No, we're talking about the same stuff, dukkha, suffering. We just want to, through some awareness, shine a little light on the subject. So you're right, awareness has to be increased. Remember, there is no other methodology known for the transformation of a human being other than awareness. The mystics put all emphasis on doing those things that elevates your awareness. And with the elevation of awareness comes a new understanding. And it is understanding that changes. Now, you have to understand the distinction I'm making between pseudo-intellectual, scriptural-based understanding. That don't transform nobody because it's not real. I'm talking about a different kind of understanding that is rooted in moving to a higher perspective. And when that awareness becomes great enough, and the understanding accompanying the awareness becomes great enough, then you drop all your stuff. You let loose of it, you see. You no longer emotionally cling to it. And what is it that you now attach to? You're attached to the freedom that comes. Once you get attached to freedom, you got to get attached to freedom. Freedom has got to become something very passionate in you. You got to want to be free. That's what the whole urge on the spiritual path is for. Salvation, liberation, moksha, freedom. You got to really want to become free. And once you get a taste of freedom, now there's no going back. There's just no way to go back. So the thing is through awareness to give yourself a taste of freedom. Yes, sister, you had a comment.
Now what I was going to ask is, like, you know, I seems like not, you know, sort of like what Sandy was saying. Yeah, I think sometimes the reason people are controlling is not because they want stuff, because you know, you may have your own stuff, so you don't really care about the other person's stuff. You just want the person, so you want to be loved, and the person, or a certain person, to love you or like you, and it's not because of stuff.
You talk about in a little higher relationship, huh?
Well, no, I mean, I just like, I feel like I got my own stuff. I don't need anybody else's stuff. So I'm not going to be, I don't ever foresee.
She means not just material.
I'm not talking about materials.
Because you may want the man as stuff. The man can be stuff, ain't it?
Right.
Right? You can want some stuff. That man is your stuff. Don't mess with my man. Girl, that's my man. That's my stuff. Right? But you use the man like you use stuff, don't you?
But you want him to give you a certain love or
Yes,
something.
yes, of course you always, because you're in a relationship where it's not so much what you're contributing, it's what you're going to get from this man. You're getting something. And that's your stuff. And see, that's the tragedy, that attachment always reduces a human being to the level of a possession, an item. You start trying to possess a human being like your material thing. Saying that my understanding when you're using stuff in the large sense of the word, that includes material, but it could include material things.
Yeah, but I mean on every level.
So you're right, sister, that very often it is this kind of relationship we have with that person that delude us into thinking that we love this man. I love you. Or that the man loves you. Right? Because attachment looks like love from a distance. Far, far away in the shadows. It looks like love. But as you come closer and closer, and you look closer and closer, then you discover. This is just exploitation. It is a mutual agreement to exploit each other. Now, nothing wrong with that. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not condemning any of this because these are evolutionary stages. You see, you have to start somewhere, right? But you should be clear. This is a contract to mutually exploit each other. Now, I can exploit you sexually, and you can exploit me sexually. And we're going to call that love. This is nonsense. You see, that's nonsense. We're
you
agreeing
just want
to
someone to make you feel.
Yeah. You want someone to make you feel it's all about you. Isn't it? So the man can easily become some more of your stuff. And usually that's where it stays. And the woman, of course, you know, with us men, women for centuries have been treated just like stuff. In fact, that's what we call her. Brothers get together, yeah, I got me some stuff. You know? When we say stuff, it's very clear what we mean. Right? Brother Sadiq? We know what we're talking about. Women have been things that we possessed. And in ancient times, a man had a right to dispose of his possession however he wanted. If I feel like killing my wife, kill my woman. She's my stuff. I possess her. I own her. Like I own a table or a chair or a dog or a cat. You see? And now, of course, women have caught up with me. Now, we all both have stuff.
Stuff has no gender.
But stuff has no gender. That's right. But you're talking about something else, though, sister, I think, hopefully, is that you're trying to talk about how do we get the real deal, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you want to have a relationship with somebody, and it may seem you don't want to be controlling, but it's like I want to be happy and I want him to be happy. And
let me tell you what Sajioba or Miraba, great female mystics. Because when we talk about love, we have to go to the women mystics. If I want to talk to you about intellectual, hard, philosophical, metaphysical, then I talk about Buddha, I talk about Muhammad, I talk about Kabir, I can talk Krishna, I can talk Mahavir, I can talk about Moses, Jesus. But you want to talk about love, is that correct? Then we'll have to turn now to these female mystics who are the experts there. And Mirabai says that when you are really talking about being in love with somebody, the first thing that drops out is you. It's not about you. You're not looking for nothing. It's not that, oh, I want to make you happy and you make me happy. No. In love, it's enough that if you are happy, period. It is a sacrifice. Has nothing to do with you. Love is a contribution, period. You see my point? It's very different. It's a very different thing. In love, you dissolve. That is what the poets have tried to capture in all great literature. That's why it makes us cry when we read Lala and Majnun or Romeo and Juliet or any of these other great love stories, because somebody's willing to die. Someone is saying, oh, you know, I'll die, I'll perish, I'll cease to exist so that you may exist. It's a very different thing.
Isn't that dangerous to do if the other person doesn't feel that way?
Yes, yes. That's why we call it falling in love. You have to fall down out of that intellect. Love is the most insecure experience that you can possibly have in this life. We have a very wrong understanding about love, because love is very fragile, very fluid. It may be here today, gone tomorrow. You don't know. There's no way to possess it. I can possess your body. Yes, I got you on paper. You my wife. Now I can drag you home, but I can't drag your love. I can't touch your love. Love is ethereal. It's not subject to any kind of control. Nor can you make anybody love you. Now that's an interesting thing. All love can only be given willingly. You can never do anything to make anybody love you. No tricks. You know, I sent you to school, I paid a mortgage, I bought you a car, you therefore should love me. Now this don't work. This don't work. Love is not syllogistic. It is not like math. It does not obey the laws of reasoning and logic. It's a very different phenomenon. And you're right, sister. Very dangerous. Somewhere in here in the library, who has some art? Who has some? You still got some art? What, are you going to keep the book forever? Huh? You bring that book back, Satra? Because in Samar, I love this Samar, because in Samar was a Jewish mystic, and there's some beautiful rubaiyats in there, isn't it, Dorothy? That talks about what I'm talking about. Yes. You see, so Samar says it far better than I can. I refer you to Samar to give you some deeper understanding of this thing called love. There's also another book, The Philosophy of the Master, right, Lieutenant Rajneesh? You should share some things with this sister afterward. Are you turning the book in, or are you going to be like Satra? All right, thank you. So everybody's not like the Satra, right? But in any case, love is a very dangerous in the sense that you're moving strictly into the unknown. Because love is alive. Now, when you got something dead, okay, you can perpetuate that over time because it's dead. You can put a dead rose in the Bible and keep it forever, but it's dead. The rose is dead. There's no fragrance. You can put it under plastic, yes, but you can't smell none of its perfume. Love is alive, flower, here today. Maybe gone tomorrow. May not be gone tomorrow, but this is the risk you take, sister. And most of us can't handle that. That's why we stop at the level of compassion. Because attachment is solid. We can touch it. It's a house, cars, that man's body. I got papers on you. I got the law on my side. You know, attachment creates a sense of security. It gives you the illusion of security. But it's an illusion, you see. And we confuse the illusion with the real deal called love. It's a great subject, and we'll be coming back to this theme about love many, many, many times, because it's the bottom line of the whole thing. That's the whole point. It's the whole point. If you're not going to evolve into a state of love, then for what are you on the planet for? I mean, really, what are you here for? You're not going to get any benefit from this precious human birth that you have. What did you get? You got some stuff, but that's just stuff. It's not going to last. It'll be gone. You can't do nothing with that, right? The whole ideal is through this process of self-mastery, through the elevation of awareness, is to get into this state of love, this state of detachment. In fact, detachment is the only state that you can love from. Now, I know this sounds crazy to you. When you are in a state of detachment for the first time, you can be compassionate in the relationship because you ain't trying to exploit no more. You're not in the relationship. You ain't looking for nothing in the relationship. You're in the relationship to give. What can I give you? How can I be of some service to you? For the first time, compassion arises in you. You detached. People who are attached, by definition, cannot love. By definition. Love can only come from a detached state where there is no exploitation. So Mirabawas tell us that this state of love is the same as the state of detachment. You see? It's a very different thing. Yes, sister?
So I would like to say, in light of that I agree with Emma also that it takes courage to seek those things.
Yes.
You know?
Great courage. Because it is that clinging, right? It is because we don't have courage that we cling. Right? Frozen. Now, life is just moving like a stream, but we can't get into life. Scared. Because it takes courage. Because to step into the flow of life, I mean, you stepping in the unknown, you don't know what's going to happen. That takes courage. And you can't have courage if you don't have self-respect.
And like Sandy was saying, well, it takes pain, but I think the courage would help us to get there without as much pain, because sometimes we will only get there until the pain is inflicted upon us and we're forced.
And then that is not courage.
Face to face.
And really, because you're still clinging in your head. You see, nothing is transformed in you, right? As, you really haven't conquered anything. Deep down inside, you're still trembling with fear. What Kierkegaard, Søren Kierkegaard called fear and trembling. unto death. You see, it just courage is the thing. But how do you get courage? That is the
I think you have to be triggered. When I say
Yes.
I mean anything.
thing. Yes.
Because on your own, I don't see
You won't do
courage coming in because we are
You won't do it.
processed
That's right.
to want these things.
Sandra, you are absolutely right. In and of your own,
You can't do it.
we will do nothing. Here's the function of the master, the teacher, the guru, the friend, the roshi, the rebbe, whatever the term you want to give them. Because they trigger us. Noon third law, an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. That's the way it is. Asdano, sanantano. On your own, you will do nothing because you're the clinger. You don't have courage. How can you behave like a courageous person? And these masters and gurus, the great benefit is not their teachers even. Because you've been thinking that it was the Dhammapada of Buddha that transformed 10,000 people into Buddhas. You were thinking that it was the gospel of Jesus that creates Christians. No. Or that it was the Quran of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that produced the Muslim. No. It was Muhammad living amongst the people that produces Muslims. It was Jesus moving among people that produced Christians. Buddha moving silently across ages that produced Buddha. Because we need another human being that said, okay, get behind me. Now we're going to do this courage thing. Come on. Grab my hand. This is how you do courage. Right? It's like dancing. The guru is someone you learn to dance with. You got to get in step with. Come with me into my life. The gurus always set up their ashrams, their schools. These schools in the old days were not these big institutions sprawled over acres of land. The ashram was the guru's house with his wife and children. Said, come on in there, move in with me. Let me show you how to do this thing here. Let me show you how to meditate every morning at 2 o'clock. Okay? Let me show you how to do that and while working a job. Come on, get with me. See this. Let me show you how to do these things. Let me show you virtue. Let me show you some tolerance. Right? Kabir Sahib's wife used to throw pots at Kabir continuously because he was a bad businessman. He would go to the market. He was a weaver, you see, and he would make clothes, but he'll give all the clothes away. And the family was starving, you know. And Charan Das, his disciple, who lived with Kabir, you know, it was amazing to Charan Das. Kabir would go give away the stuff, come home, and then his wife would hit him upside the pen, and Kabir would look at Charan Das and say, see how I took that? You know, that's how you have to do this. You know, it's living with the guru, being with the guru, being with the teacher that gives us that courage, that trick. Because you have to see another human being. Because this sounds too much to you. Because you say, how can a human being let go of their stuff? You can't even conceive of that. You really can't. Try as you may, try hard as you can. You can't conceive of living in the unknown. You can't conceive of how in the world can anybody function in that which is unpredictable. You can't even imagine it. You go ahead and read all the scriptures you want, but you have to see this.
Well, I say it because I can't conceive of it. I don't know anybody who can live without it.
None of us.
I haven't met anybody.
You won't.
That's what I'm saying.
We have to get it from another human being, and we have to get in step with that human being, and we have to become part of that human being. And that's how we get it. Someone has to model. I asked you originally, Keith, about the question about character in our children. And Khadija, I think, and began to answer it for it. If we don't have a strategy that is based on us, then you ain't going to develop no character. You're not going to teach your son no character. Say, now, son, read right here, and this is what it said. No, it's how you live. You want your children to have character, you got to have character. Simple. Ain't no tricks for that. You can't send them to no private public school or whatever kind of institution, pay thousands, millions of dollars. No. You got to have the stuff. And put it in front of our children learn by modeling. We're the same. We learn by modeling behavior. So these great teachers and gurus come to model spiritual living for us. And unless you can see that, you don't have a shot. And what happens, isn't that how we normally get our courage? I can remember a lot of times when I'm confronted with a task that I'm afraid of, right? And I can remember going to the swimming Douglas Park, Douglas Park on the west side, but to the swimming pool, and in the deep part of the water you see, right? And I was afraid to jump in there. You know, I could swim a little bit, you know, but this deep water, right? And it's hard to get into that, but as you see your friends, you know, running and jumping in, and you say, boy, if he can do that, I can do, you know, and you start building up a little courage, and finally you take the leap. But your courage has to be triggered from outside of you because you don't have it. You don't have it. You don't have it.
You know, I think we can't be narrow about where those examples come from either, because we can get into this thing of the teacher must be this sort of really exotic looking person.
Oh, yes.
And it could be your child. It could be something right in your midst, as you said in a tape. I wasn't in the class, or someone said in the class about your family may be the thing that's tailor-made to give you those.
Oh, Khadijah, you hot today. Khadijah, I'm telling you, every word that is coming out of your mouth is like a pearl of truth today. You're right. Your family, there are situations that function like a guru. Guru is not always a physical being. A guru is sometimes a contact. In fact, one of the great things that the gurus do is that they try to answer our questions with an experience. It's beautiful to Wojo in the Sufi tradition in Islam, right? In the heart of Islam, you find a thing called Sufism. And historians, I disagree with them because they tell us that, well, Islam came and then Sufism came out of Islam. And actually it was the reverse. First there was Sufism and then came Islam. You see, Sufism is the heart. And in Sufism, one of the practices, although is the murshid creates situations to answer your questions. Because remember, any real question can only be answered by an experience, can only be answered by a situation. And I remember one of the disciples coming to the murshid, asked him about what are the requisites for spiritual practice, and the peers said, okay, I'll answer that in a little bit. You know, the seeker was getting a little impatient because this peer is just taking their time, and after all, this is a serious thing. This man has been seeking all their life, right? They want to know what it's going to take. What it's going to take. I've studied all of these surahs in the Quran and all of these things, and I know all the chapters in the surah. I know all of this stuff, you know, but I haven't had the experience. It hasn't turned yet. What's missing? I need just one more. You give me the key, right? And the priest said, yes, I do. He said, but first, you go down to the edge of the river there. Bring me some water. Right? And so he tricks the man down. Then I've told the story many times. Satra, you tell it again for me. During break, he tells it so much better than me. He's my official storyteller. Huh? But anyway, he gets the man down there, right, June? And he jumps on the man, throws the man down in the water, just holding the man's head under the water. And this man, the thing said, this man trying to kill me, right? And he's gasping for breath. The Pierre pulls his head up and he slams him down again. I mean, he's really doing a thing on this. And finally, this man breaks free, gets up, drags out of water, slipping, falls. Said, are you crazy? What kind of? I shouldn't have came here. They told me these Pierres are crazy. I should have listened to people. You are dangerous. You fakirs and holy men. You know, they were right about you. You know, the imams, the Orthodox imams were right about you people. Stay away from you. You are too dangerous. And the peer said, but you came and you asked me a question. And I was interested. Well, how are you answering? He said, well, what were you thinking about while I was holding your head under the water? Air. He said, were you thinking about anything else? No. Are you sure? No. Were you thinking about your wife? No. Were you thinking about your wealth? No. What? Air. He said, and when you can think about Allah like that, then you got it. When you can become that one point. When God stays on that. Now, the people that came into Islam later, through its peripheral and orthodox version, they can't keep Allah on their mind like that. So for them, salat will do 5 times. But some of them can't even do salat. It's too much work. They can't even keep Allah on their mind for 5 times a day, let alone continuously, like the need for air. So they teach through experience, and that's what they create for us, is experiences. They throw us into experience. And God himself has thrown you to an experience of your situation, your karma. This is beautiful, Khadija. We're going to pick up on this after break. Your karma. I'm telling you, you've been given perfect karma. Beautiful karma. The situation that you find yourself in right now, custom made for you. Perfect. Couldn't have been better. All the keys are there. Everything that you need is right there. But like Bahika says, we're all like that man who has a handkerchief with money inside, tied in a knot. And Bahika said that all are rich or Bahika, but how to untie the knot, he doth not know. Therefore you remain a pauper, because you don't know how to take advantage of your situation you're in. You really don't know how to use the situation you're in, and you're looking for different situations. I'm telling you, the situation you already got is good enough. What are you looking for? It's like if I want to cross this room, Satra, I can't cross from anywhere but here. You see, I can't say, well, I wish I was over there in the middle room, then I'll start my journey, because that's just wishful thinking. I am here. Start walking from here. But what are we doing? We're standing still saying, well, I'm going to start a journey, but I'm going to wait until I somehow get in the middle of the thing. Now, you're never going to get in the middle. You have to start from where you're at. We're going to take a break, but I want to end on the quote from one of the great Sufi mystics, Rumi. Rumi says that when the Lord has given you a spade being symbolic of your karma, your situations and things of that nature, he has clearly expressed his wish. You did. Right? Now, before we take a break, we have quickly a naming ceremony. And for my brothers, so if you all will bear with me, Bilal, and you can take your camera down. I guess you can, no, you're not, Bilal don't want to miss anything. Would you go to my office and get yourself a pillow? This is one of my brothers. I've been so fortunate in life that, as I was saying, the Lord put me in a family where I had all these gurus to teach me, you know, and the form of my own family. And so I've learned something from everybody. So now, because I've collected all their wealth, now they have to come back to me for it. I've taken everything from them. And so today, one of my younger brothers has asked that he be named. Come. You didn't need a pillow?
No, it's all right. Emma's bringing you one.
Emma bringing you one. All right. It is interesting. His birthday was on the 26th, and I remember that his other birthday was also very close. Is that right? 24th. So his physical and spiritual birth were very close. Now, your big brother and our big brother wants you in the middle, so I suggest you obey. You know how these older brothers can be. And get in camera range for him. He likes to direct, right? And you should face him, in fact. Just face him. Face him. Turn around and face him.
Go back.
I have no problem doing what he said. These young kids today, right?
Go back by him. Go back by him. Go back by him.
Like you used to sit when you were a little boy. Huh? There you go. Right. Now, and then of course, you should close your eyes, please. And the whole ideal of the naming ceremony is very simple. It's a device, because there has to be a point in our life where we break from our past, where we say, now, no more of that. It is a point in time has to come where we say, from here I start over. From here I drop all that stuff and I move on. And the naming ceremonies were always connected with initiation. Now, of course, it's deteriorated into rites of passages, changing of religions and things of that nature. But essentially, the taking of a name was a demarcation of a new spiritual direction that life would be going into, you see. And the idea was to name that person within the context of that person's essential qualities. It's one thing to take a name out of a book, but that book is not you. You take a name out of the person. But to take the name out of the person, you have to have a feel for the person, right? You have to have some sense of that person's essence, that person's nature. And in my case, with this man here, it's easy because I was there when he was born. I've known him all his life. I've watched him grow up. I seen him at a time before his ego could obscure his real essence, his nature. Before his own ignorance got in the way of it. You know, it was easy to see. And one of the things is that this child was born with a beard. Those of you who are still steeped in the old ways know what that means. So there was a kind of inner seeing, a kind of intuitiveness. And in him, it was coupled with a real kind of simplicity. He's really a simple man. He just don't look simple. He actually is simple. But simple in a beautiful way. Almost like a savant. He, over the years, developed a very quick grasp of spiritual teachings. In spite of the fact that unlike so many of us, he did not have PhDs and all this other stuff. He just had a kind of a natural understanding. And so it is toward that essence in him that I like to name him. The first part of the name, of course, is Ra. Ra, of course, simply means God, you are. And then the next part of the name will be Sadar. The real Sadar comes from Sa. Sa means truth. And the ideal is that he should be true. The ideal is that he should aim his life toward truth, toward being authentic. To God. To stay true to the game. You know, young boys have a saying, right? Say, stay true to the game. So it's Sadar, his commitment is to stay true to the game. Then the last part is Gyani. Gyani. Gyani means knowledge. Stay true to your knowledge of God. Because you see, 14 years ago, he was given a knowledge of God. He really was. He was given all of the tools that would make him a Buddha. And he was not true to them. And today is his rebirth with his intentions to be true to the knowledge of God that he has been given. And so when you rise from this floor, you will no longer be known as Luther to me. You will become my brother for the third time in the form of Ra Sadar Gyani. Please rise. Let us welcome him to his new birth. I can smell food somewhere in them there hills. So let us take our break and we will resume at 2:05.